What is up?
Happy Lunar New Year, everybody. And welcome
to another episode of Case Files
with Kat
and Ashley.
We're just going to keep saying...
I don't know.
You didn't keep it going. We didn't keep it going. Ah, that was a fail.
So sorry. I didn't know I was supposed to keep going.
Yeah, so it's the year of the tiger, which...
Oh, yes. Is me.
That's you.
I'm a tiger.
And I got the words wrong. Just had to go, it's the year of the tiger.
Listen, it's already been a long week, okay? Like, it's only Tuesday, and it's
Tuesday, people.
A long week. It'll be Thursday when you people are listening to this episode, or whatever day you choose to do it. But we're recording on Tuesday. A long week already. Very long.
It's a little bit unfair how long it has been.
Yes.
For those of you who are going to listen on Thursday, I hope you're not frozen, and I hope you have power if you're in Texas, because another Snowmageddon Arctic storm.
And so, for those who don't know, my house flooded the last time Texas had this issue, which was last February. And so they just said this week that I can move back into my house or start moving back in. They're still working on some stuff, but for the most part. And now this damn storm is coming again. I'm going to be so upset if anything happens. And I'm also not drinking because the building I office in, the city shut down water to the whole, I don't know if it's the whole block or just the street or what, but they shut it off to prepare for the storm and like check for leaks and stuff. So I'm like, ugh. So I haven't been drinking anything today. So
she's dried up like a prune.
Lots of fun things happening over here in Ashley world. So anyway.
Well, I'm wishing you luck, and I hope that at your house you've turned off the water there too, since you're not there.
Like the contractor was instructed to turn it off, but it should be off. Electricity should be off. Water should be off. Nothing should be operating in that house right now.
All of it. It's also, we were talking about how we didn't have a question of the week, but damn, if February isn't a full month. So today is, Lunar New Year. Happy Lunar New Year to those who celebrate. But we also have tomorrow, which is... And have you ever gone to see Punxsutawney? How do you say it? Punxsutawney Phil?
I wish, but no, I'm not.
That movie, Groundhog Day, the movie is, I still love that movie. I don't know. That movie just makes me laugh. And then February as a month is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So I would be remiss if I didn't put a plug in for all the amazing organizations. If you or someone you know or a friend of yours or whatever is in need of help, there's lots of resources. Please look into, if you're not sure if you're in an abusive relationship and you're a teen, go to loveisrespect.org and just check it out. And there's some pretty good information there. But also if you're a parent and, we've actually been doing, Bay Area Turning Point has been doing a really good job of going out and going to schools during Human Trafficking Month, which was last month. And our friend Melissa has been getting lots of emails from parents saying, I think this is happening. And teenagers have reached out saying, so I've been seeing this happen with my friends. And it's like, wow, we're just, the serial numbers being tattooed on arms and stuff like that, like things that are actually visible to the naked eye. So crazy.
Yeah.
And then February is also Black History Month. So happy Black History Month, everybody.
There are lots of things. Also, before we get too far into it, I would like to thank a new listener. His name is Ed. He is the one that sent in the story that I'm going to be doing today. He said it happened in his hometown, and he thought it was kind of an interesting story. And so we love when people send us story suggestions. And yeah, so I decided to do his story. And if you have a story idea, please send it to us. Like, I know when we started, we just did like true crime, paranormal, but now we do all kinds of cases because they're fun. Like, I don't want to say like the cases are fun, but it's fun to like do the research and talk about them. And, you know, they're interesting. So it doesn't have to be just like true crime, but anyway, send them our way. And
especially because all of y'all send in story ideas on the week that it's not my week. So send them now so that Ashley can send them my way. She got lucky this week.
Yes. And also we had someone who listens to the show that emailed us through our website who said he actually knows some of the, how do you say it, Slovenian? The fourth wall people that was an episode that Kat did. And so he said he would tell us some interesting things about them if we reached out to him. So I have his. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, and he said we got some things wrong. Hopefully not too wrong, but I mean, you know, there's
he said
interesting
it was wrong
stuff.
only because the truth is so crazy, is what he said. So, but yeah, so thank you guys for reaching out. It means a lot. We love to know that people are actually listening to us, and you know, following our podcast.
I got a text from a friend of mine. Going like, "Hey, what's going on with your hips, Adam?" You know who I'm talking about. And I was just like, did I tell you about my hips? And he's like, I listened to your show. Like,
love it.
Oh, I forget. It's all out there for everybody.
Yes.
I have my appointment with the surgeon on the 7th. So next Tuesday.
Ooh.
Monday, or I don't know. One of those.
Someday. One day that's not today. Okay. So now that those things are out of the way, and please just tell us. This is the not so fun part. So I just want to give a warning that tonight's story is a little rough. It does involve the abuse of a child, but I would like to say that the end result is very positive and the message is very positive. I think it's a very interesting story. But I just still like to give warnings in advance when it involves children. So this is your warning. Ready? Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So tonight I'm going to be talking about the Katie Beers story, like Beers, like just the way it sounds, Katie Beers. And this is the story that was suggested to us. And so she was born Catherine Beers, and she was born on December 30th, 1982. She was only 9 years old when she was kidnapped in New York, and she was held in an underground bunker from December 2nd, 1992 to January 13th, 1993, so 17 days. And she was chained, and she was raped, and she was just in general being held captive. So Katie was born in Long Island, and she was the daughter of Marilyn Beers. They never, in any of the research I did, it didn't ever mention her father. So I don't know anything about him. It only discussed her mother. So 2 days before Katie turned 10, this is when she was lured from her home by a family friend named John Esposito. He was a building contractor. He was a friend of the family. Like he had known them, and he had promised her birthday present. So that's how he got her out of her home. One, she knew him. He was a very familiar person. And two, it was almost her birthday. So he said, hey, I have some birthday presents. The way that the family discovered she was kidnapped is that there was a message left for her godmother on the answering machine that said, Aunt Linda, I've been kidnapped by a man with a knife, and he's coming back now. The police did trace that to a payphone near a Spaceplex indoor amusement park and video game like arcade area that was in New York. I imagine it's kind of like a main event type place if you guys have those there. And the police did determine that message had actually just been recorded, like pre-recorded. And so
it was pre-recorded?
It was recorded. Like she wasn't actually on the payphone. Like she didn't leave that message live. Like it was recorded and then played on the answer.
Oh. Weird.
So Esposito told police that Katie was kidnapped by a third party while at the Spaceplex. That's why he had it recorded so he could play it from the payphone and make it look like that's where they had been and she had been kidnapped. So Katie was held in a 6 by 7 foot bunker under his garage at his home in Bayshore, New York.
This is Esposito?
Esposito, the one that kidnapped her, yeah.
Okay.
And so it was only a 6 by 7 foot bunker, which is not really that big at all, especially for a 10-year-old child. So this was under his house, and it was concealed by a 200-pound concrete trap door. So there was no way she was going to get out of the bunker on her own.
Whoa.
So the bunker, it only contained like a toilet. It had a TV in there. There was a mattress, and then the chains that were used to train her. He had told police that he specifically built this bunker for Katie in mind.
Oh my God, this stresses me out so
prior
much.
To the bunker being there, it was just like a dirt plot, and the kids in the neighborhood used to play there all the time, and just kind of hang out. And so he specifically built this for Katie. Like he knew that's what he was going to do, and he built it for her.
So pause, because I need to catch up. Because this creeps me out. So he was a contractor that the family was using, and that's how he had met Katie?
He was a building contractor, but the family was not using him. He was just a family friend. But because he was a contractor, him building stuff on his property was not unusual.
So
basically.
The reason... Right. So like the reason I started to get really nervous was because, I mean, like we have AC guys, we have like the one contractor dude, we've got, that is so scary to think like they're casing the joint,
to be honest, it didn't explain how he became a family friend other than that they were kind of neighbors and he was a building contractor. But it just says that he was a like known friend of the family. So that's why she wasn't suspicious when he was like, I have presents for you. It wasn't just like a stranger off the street who said, hey,
he probably helped out the mom, like, I'll come by and fix that, and kind of endeared himself.
About the mom soon.
Yes. Let me just shut up.
We will speak about the person who should not be allowed to call herself a mother, but we will speak about her. So anyways, this bunker was specifically for Katie. So in later interviews, Katie claimed she rarely slept, fearing abuse from Esposito. She said she was afraid he would molest her while she was sleeping, but what she was more concerned about is that he would photograph her sleeping and send that image to the police. She feared that if the police thought she was dead, they would end their search for her. This girl is 9 years old, and that was her thought process. I cannot even imagine that. So she didn't want to sleep. She was afraid that he would make it seem like she was dead. So prior to the kidnapping, Katie's life was, just to be quite blunt, fucking awful. It's not like she was part of a happy family and got kidnapped. She was already living a life of physical and sexual abuse at the hands of her godmother's husband, Saul. I don't know how to say his last name. Hilary, Ingilleri. I have no idea how to say it. But his first name was Saul. So during a 2020 interview, Katie had said, I was sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, verbally abused. I was a slave. She said that she'd been being abused since she was a toddler by Saul. And she spent much of her life, like outside of that, she had spent much of her life hanging on the streets. She was friendless. She would skip school. She was living on free coffee and food from a laundromat. She spent most of her time doing errands for her godmother, which on the note of the godmother, in that recorded message, something you say she referred to her as Aunt Linda. So I would think that would make her godfather her uncle, but they never clarified that in any of the things I read. And other than that one statement, they only refer to the godmother as godmother and not aunt. So, well,
like my best friends are, both Jason, their aunt and uncle. This Aunt Amy, is not really Aunt Amy. But so that could have been that blur. Like, you're so close to the family, you're basically my aunt.
So she would do errands for her grandmother. She wore ragged clothing and she often smelled really bad. Her mother's home was littered with trash. Child Protective Services had visited her home several times, but nothing ever came of it. In that same 2020 interview, Katie said that teachers never spoke up for her. She only made it to class once or twice a week, and they never said anything.
What?
Neighbors that were interviewed said they frequently thought about calling authorities about Katie, but just didn't. Like, they just didn't. And they admitted that. Neighbors were like, yeah, we saw what was happening. We saw her running around the neighborhood. We saw her living in this situation, and we just didn't want to get involved. So the school officials, when they were contacted after all of this happened, they say they actually had reported her absenteeism to welfare authorities, but they never heard anything about it. And they just didn't follow up with it. So they just let it go. The father of Katie's brother claims he had long been suspicious of Esposito, but apparently he also did nothing. Authorities with the Big Brother and Big Sister program referred. So before I say this, the contractor, so Esposito had portrayed himself as a big brother, like he was part of the program. He would often claim that, and the Big Brother, Big Sister program actually reported him to the police for that false claim, fearing that he was using that to do stuff to children, and nothing happened. So all of these people prior to her kidnapping had already been failing her. She was being abused, was being neglected. Her father wasn't in the picture. Her mother worked all the time, but even that's not to say she worked all the time and she was a hero. She worked all the time, and then she still came home to neglect Katie. And she was letting all of these things happen. And there was a really nasty custody battle between the mother and the godmother. The godmother wanted custody of Katie, and so it was just like a nasty back and forth. And during all of this custody, at no point did anyone realize what was happening to Katie. So Katie said in that same interview that a lot of people just kept to themselves. Went on to say that her situation is what prepared her to survive her abduction. Can we just take a moment to think about how fucking sad that is, that this child was so neglected, so abused, that when she got kidnapped and thrown in a bunker, she's like, well, I've been preparing for this my whole life. Like, that to me is just so awful. It is so gut-wrenching. Like, she is 9 years old, and she said, I was so abused. My childhood was so messed up. All of these things that I went through is what taught me how to survive this situation. That is things that you hear grown people saying, and this was a 9-year-old.
The fact that she was just aware of, I better not let him take a picture of me asleep.
Yes.
Yes. What do you know, child? How do you know that? I
never would have thought of that. Just even sitting here, when I was researching, I was like, if I was kidnapped, I never would have thought about that scenario.
Same.
So Katie actually turned 10 in the bunker. And when she was found, after she was found, the investigators, they had found an audio tape with a recording where she had sung happy birthday to herself, but she does not remember that. She has no recollection of her recording happy birthday to herself. She doesn't remember singing to herself. But they did find a tape where she had sung it. She had said that while she was in captivity, mostly what he was feeding her was junk food, soda. And she said to this day, she is so repulsed by those, those chocolate mints they give at dinner. I think it's Andre's mints most of the time. You get them stuff. She said she cannot eat those because that was the number one thing he fed her while she was in captivity. And she said she also cannot listen
Olive
to
Garden.
Yeah, and she said she also cannot listen to Whitney's Houston, what's the song? I Will Love You Forever, or what's the song? Yes, that song. So she said that she can't listen to that song because it brings back the memories of being in the bunker, because at night when the TV would be on, MTV and VH1 would be playing that song repetitively. So during the 17 days, she heard it so much. And so she said when she hears it now, it's like a very strong trigger. So she can't listen to that either. But she did say while she was in the bunker, she had resolved to save herself. She knew that she had to get it together. She had to save herself because no one else was coming to save her. Like, she had just determined that no one was coming to save her. And so as she would watch reports of herself on TV,
oh my God,
she would see like the news reports, the police searches, and she knew that she had to do something. So she decided that she was going to start playing mind games with Esposito. She thought that by trying to manipulate him into thinking about the future and like things like that, that she would get him scared and worried about what the future would hold, especially if he didn't let go of her. Again, people, this is a 10-year-old child.
Wow. I don't even know how long it would take me to get to that decision, and B, to like figure out how I was going to do it. Like, even just listening to you, I'm like, oh, that's smart. I don't know that I would have thought of that.
And that's, to be honest, brilliant. I'm kind of surprised he gave her a TV, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but she did have a TV in the bunker. And so she would see these news reports and seeing that even though her family necessarily wasn't trying so hard to get to her, that these other people were out there for her, like the police, this news reporter. And I'm actually going to talk about the news reporter that a little bit later. But so she said, she started asking him, she said, when I asked Esposito, how would I go to school? He told me that he would teach me what I needed to know. When I asked him how I would work, he would tell me that he had enough money for the two of us. When I asked him about getting married and having children, he told me that when I was 18, he would marry me and have children with me, to which I told him no. She said she would also say things like, if you release me, I will run away. I won't tell the police. But she would just continuously ask questions like this, like, hey, what's going to happen, down the road? Wow. Like, what is life going to be like? Am I always going to have to be in the bunker? Things like that. And so after 17 days of intense around the clock surveillance, like, he was constantly watching her, like checking on her. Again, she was like chained to the bed. He turned himself in and he pleaded guilty to kidnapping, and he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison, but he was never charged with the rape. He was just charged with kidnapping.
What?
And it was like second-degree kidnapping.
I don't even have Kevin back.
Yeah. So Katie would later say that she repressed her memories of that sexual assault for many, many years as a defense mechanism, because she just didn't want to think about it. And so shortly after Katie was taken, her mother had actually signed over temporary custody to like the county authorities, but then tried to get custody back. Like, she went and started fighting to get custody again. Esposito had actually been arrested in 1978 for abducting a 7-year-old boy and had pleaded guilty at that time to a reduced charge and received probation. It never said like what if he did anything to the kid. It never said like if he held him captive or abused him. It just said that he did abduct him and had pled guilty to a reduced charge, but got out on probation. He served no jail time for that. He had a history of befriending children and masquerading as a big brother, as I stated. The Big Brother, Big Sister program was aware of this claim, and he did report that, and they did report that he was lying about this. But again, nothing was ever done.
That just makes my stomach turn. Please tell me that this man is still in jail.
We'll discuss that.
Oh my God, I don't like that answer.
So after Katie was found alive in the bunker, which thankfully she was alive, the authorities finally intervened and placed her into a foster home. She had been stuck, like I said, she had been in this just horrible situation where she was being abused, being neglected, begging for food, running the streets. After all of that, after she'd been held in this bunker for 17 days. She was put into this foster family, and it was such a drastic positive shift for her. The foster family that took her in did end up adopting her, and they took her in like she was one of their own, and they gave her such an amazing life. She said that she had 4 siblings from the family, and for years after the adoption, they really worked to protect her privacy. They didn't let her do interviews, like, news interviews. She didn't have to talk about it if she didn't want to talk about it. And she was quoted saying, "They just let me live. They let me be a kid. I didn't have a lot of responsibilities other than riding my bike and doing my homework."
Wow.
And yeah. And so this family was a loving couple. They had 4 other kids, and they just took her in, and they really helped her, and they really protected her and gave her like a life that she didn't know she could have, and just really, really made a difference in her life. And so she did have to undergo years and years of therapy. But her therapist said, her therapist's name was Mary Bromley. And her therapist said the women in her life neglected her and did not protect her. Then the men abused her. So her level of trust was very, very low. But this family basically helped her blossom, helped her realize that she was going to be okay, and really just gave her what she needed. And so on the 20th anniversary of her ordeal, which was really the first time she said anything about it, talked about it publicly, she released a book titled Buried Memories, The Katie Beers Story, which she co-wrote with reporter Carolyn Gusoff, which Gusoff was the actual reporter that she watched in the bunker telling her story. So this...
Wow.
Yeah. And so...
What was the name of the book again? I'm sorry.
Buried Memories, Katie Beers Story.
Okay.
And so the reporter was the one who would be on the news every night saying, "Hey, we're looking for Katie. If you've seen her, please help us." She would give the update on the police reports and what the police were doing. And so Katie would see her every night. And Katie said that when she wrote this book, when she met this woman 16 years later, it was like she had known her whole life. Like that was really the first time meeting her. And she just remembered watching her every night and kind of having that hope that, people were still looking for her. And I meant to say earlier, when she was watching the news stories and stuff, she knew that, like, if the news had stopped reporting her story, then people would stop searching for her. And so she was just very grateful for this reporter.
Oh,
and so her and the reporter, like, co-wrote this book together. So since then, she has made many public appearances. She talks about what she went through, and she tries to raise awareness for other people in a similar situation. To watch out for family, friends. It's not always strangers. It's usually not strangers that actually take your children or abduct your children. And she speaks at a lot of events. She's involved in a lot of organizations. She earned a degree in business management. And she works in the insurance sales industry right now. She got married and actually has 2 children of her own, a boy and a girl. And she was quoted saying, she was quoted saying, looking back at her abduction, she says, if that hadn't happened to her, she would not be where she is now. So she's made peace. So not that she really forgave him, but she's made peace with it because she realizes that it took all of these negative, bad things happening to her to put her into a better situation, which is really sad and speaks very poorly about the services here in America, about like CPS checking on her multiple times and not removing her from the situation, teachers not saying anything, people not wanting to get involved. Like, she could have been saved way before she was abducted. But anyways, she's made peace with it. She said, my life is exactly where I always wanted. 2 parents who love me, siblings who are amazing, a husband and 2 kids. Her and her personal family, like her and her kids and husband, they all live in Pennsylvania now. And she says, in regards to releasing her book about the ordeal, she says, I hope that more does come out of the book. She said, I would love to be able to help other kids or adults, or to be an inspirational or motivational speaker, something like that. But if I go back to my life in rural Pennsylvania and go back to my insurance sales job, I would love that too. She says that when she was 10 and she was watching the news, like I said, that if the media had stopped reporting on her story, I think I might have given up hope. And then that might have made me think my family had given up hope and that I would never be found. And then she sums up her whole experience by saying, once you turn to being negative, you're not going to be able to survive. And personally, I just think that that's such a powerful statement because, because one, I feel like that should be a clear message to media to like never stop telling a missing child's story. You never know if they're watching it. You never know who's watching it, who may see it. And I understand they can't like report on it every day, but just, you know, keeping missing people's stories alive, like through these Facebook groups and pages and posters and flyers and whatever else is so, so important. And two, if you are in a situation like that, you know, basically she's saying don't give up hope and survive. Personally, I cannot imagine being a 10-year-old girl in her position and even wanting to survive. I probably would have given up like day 2. Like being stuck in this bunker, being chained, being raped, not being fed, like knowing the background story of her family and the abuse. Like, I don't know that I would have had the will to survive. I don't know that I would have tried because in my mind, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm getting out of this situation, but I'm going to be put right back into the other situation. And I don't know that I would have had that drive that she had and that will she had to ask those questions to him and to think of an escape plan and to think about not sleeping for the pictures and whatever else. Like, I just cannot imagine being as strong as she is. Like, that is incredible amount of strength to me. I cannot imagine, me personally.
What's amazing is just her level of perseverance and grit.
Yes.
And she had that before the bunker, which is obvious.
Yeah.
She had survival skills that no 9-year-old should have. But unfortunately, she did.
Yeah.
But like you said, the media should do a better job of reporting, continue to report on missing cases, but also to not just report the pretty young white girls. There's a lot of indigenous young women who have been kidnapped. There's there's so many kids that don't get media attention because they don't fit some kind of mold. So I would like for all of them to get that airtime. But also the CPS system, the foster care system, the fact that her foster care family was so amazing is actually
kind of a shock, right?
Right. I know people who are foster parents who I'm like, yes, I'm glad you're a foster parent. I would love to be a foster parent. I worked with girls who were abused by their foster parents, who were only in the house to get that foster paycheck.
Yeah, and we've covered many stories where the people are in foster care and it was worse than the original situation. Just going from one abusive situation to another. So the fact that she did get placed somewhere with amazing people is, I loved when I read that. Okay, so I'm
so grateful that that's the case for her. And that's
what I said in the beginning. It was a positive message. If you could listen to the beginning, everything from there on does turn out very positive for her. But in an interview with WCBS in New York, she was quoted saying, "I just believe that if you are in an abusive situation, be it emotional, physical, sexual, spousal, or whatever it may be, you need to get out of that situation. Find somebody to talk to, because if I didn't have somebody to talk to about the abuse I sustained, my life would be a completely different situation." So she's like a big advocate of talking to therapists, talking to someone, having a support system, and not keeping it to yourself. No matter what kind of abusive situation you're in, she's like, it doesn't matter, if it's emotional or mental or something that people can't physically see, you still have to talk to someone about it and not keep it inside. And so she's a big, big advocate of that. So you had asked what happened to Esposito after he was sent to prison. So, well, naturally, he passed away behind bars. He never really served true justice. He died in 2013. So he was in jail for a little bit, but I mean,
not a little bit. Not like Castro. What was his first name? Who kidnapped those 3 girls, right?
Yeah.
My first episode or second episode that we did.
So he did serve some jail time, but it's still not really truly justice, right? He was never charged for raping her. He was only charged for second-degree kidnapping. So he died in 2013. Prior to his death, Katie did reach out to him when she was writing her book, and this is what he had to say about the entire situation. I know I'm guilty of my crime, but I believe I've been punished enough. I mean, I didn't kill anyone. And when I started my crime, I really thought it would be good for the both of us. Yeah. So that was his excuse for kidnapping her, because he thought it was going to be the best for both of them, and just that he would hold her hostage until she turned 18. Mind you, she was 9. And when she turned 18, they would get married and they would have babies and they would have this wonderful life together, and she would never have to work. And he was going to be her teacher and just tell her everything she needed to know. And yeah, so his excuse was, I didn't do anything that bad. I didn't kill anyone. So anyways.
But this is how I think the justice system also sees rapists. And it's a very underpunished crime in general. And so the fact that he wasn't charged with a rape, it doesn't surprise me in the least. But a lot of, that kid, what was his name? Brock Turner, the swimmer, he had the world ahead of him, and blah, blah. Well, what about his victim? What about her? Because
she should have been drunk at the party, Kat. Duh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they said, basically, is like, she shouldn't have been drinking at the party. Or she shouldn't have been alone at the party. And that's why so many people, men, women, rape victims in general, don't come forward, because that is how they're treated, that it's their fault. They shouldn't have done this. They shouldn't have done that. And then even when they do come forward, the rapists don't ever really get punished. They get like a slap on the hand. So
there's still this inner monologue for myself. Like, it was my fault. I was a kid. Yeah. And that's still an inner monologue for me. And it's just that's so frustrating. It's frustrating.
So
we have a lot to deal with, and I'm very proud of her. Wow.
Yeah. So again, he was imagining this life for them, that he didn't say he was saving her, but that's kind of gist I got from from what he was saying, that he was saving her from this situation, and just they were going to have this life together.
Chaining her in this 200 until she doored bunker for 9 years.
Until she turned 18, so that they could get married and have his children. And I just want to say, I am proud that she was like, no, when he said that. She's like, I told him no, that's not what's happening. So good for her. Really, really, really good for her. So also in her book, she mentions that her godfather, the one that had been molesting her and raping her, ended up serving 12 years in prison for his crimes, and he died in jail in 2009. So he did also go to jail and serve time.
Bravo. How did they find him? Was that before the kidnapping, or?
It didn't really clarify in anything other than that he did serve jail time. I'm assuming that when she got released, they discovered all of the abuse. The investigators of this case. I did read that the investigators of this case of assault, like bringing her out of the bunker, were much more hands-on with her abuse and investigating the abuse and all of this stuff. So during that investigation, my assumption, this is just my assumption, is that they discovered she said something about him, being abused before. And during her interviews, she said that's what kept her going, is the abuse that she went through. Like, that's what prepared her. So anyways, they did arrest him, charge him, and he did serve time in prison, and he did die in prison after 12 years. So both of her abusers did end up in jail. They both died in jail, but so Katie's story has been covered on ABC's 2020. It was in 2013 in an episode on the ID channel for a miniseries called Killer Carnies, which I'm not sure why it was on Killer Carnies, but it was covered there. and of course her book. She has made many public appearances now on shows like Newsday, People. She's been on Dr. Phil. Like, she wants to advocate and tell her story and help anybody that she can that's in a similar situation. There's also a Facebook page called Katie Beers Talks that you can follow that highlights some of the places that she's spoken at, the projects she supports, the organizations, lots of pictures. She hasn't posted since 2019, but I've looked through it, and I mean, it's really informational to find organizations that help children, and like I said, there's all kinds of information stuff on there. So that's the story on her. And I know I didn't really have trivia at the beginning, but I did want to say that if you are interested in helping missing children, if that is something you really care about, if you care about helping their family, if you visit the website connect.missingkids.org, it is ran by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and it has some really, really, really educational pieces. You can learn where to go for professional training if you want to get into that as a career. It has where to volunteer, upcoming events, how to donate. You can search every missing children's flyer that's out there. You can look at Amber Alerts in different areas. It shows you all of the active Amber Alerts and everything. So it's a really, really useful website if that is something that you are passionate about. So that's my PSA for missing children, is go visit that website.
Wow.
I know it's kind of a short story, but I liked that even though it had such a horrible, horrible beginning, she did so much with her life. She absolutely turned it around. She did not act like a victim. She used what happened to her to help others. And she just continued to be that strong woman that she always was. Like, she went to therapy. She had this family. She had siblings. She had parents. She ended up, going to college and getting her husband and kids and just living her life the best she can. And to me, that's such an amazing outcome.
Where's her mom?
In some of the interviews I read, it said that years after all of this happened, the mom did try to get custody of her again, but never could. And then nothing else was ever said about her. So once they started talking about the adoptive family, the foster family that took her in and started helping her, they didn't really talk about her mom. I mean, I'm sure she talks about her in her book, but all of the interviews and articles and things I read never talked about the mom after the fact that it mentioned that she tried to get custody back of her, like tried to regain custody of her. And just to state that she never did get it again. So Katie did have an older brother who was a shared custody between her mom and his father, which I mentioned his father when his father said he has suspicions. And then again, I don't know if I said it or if I skipped it, but if I did skip it, her brother said that Esposito had actually molested him when he was little. After all this ordeal happened, he had made a statement that he had actually been molested by Esposito himself when he was a child. The one part did say the investigators had tried to do, they did try to investigate Esposito a little bit more and see if he had abused other children other than the one he was convicted of, but they couldn't really find anything. They think that Katie was definitely the first one in the bunker, especially since he said he built the bunker just for her.
Well, he was a serial offender anyway, and I don't know that I believe that bunker was built just for her. I think he's a smart enough man to know that, like, oh, you don't say, oh, I've been doing this for 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah. Again, he was known to have children around, to be friendly, that kind of stuff. But again, I don't know. They did say the bunker wasn't always there. Like the kids, when they were like little younger, they did play in that property or whatever else, like in the dirt and stuff. And so it was a recently built bunker. And so they just don't know if he did have someone in there before Katie. but they knew he hadn't had that bunker for very long.
They destroyed it.
But
have they gotten
yes,
rid of it?
They did. After the investigation was concluded, the bunker is gone. So that was not even a question. That was gone.
Okay. This is just going to, and I am so sorry, but if you are a grown person and people know you for hanging out with a lot of children, maybe stop doing that.
Yeah.
If all the kids want to come and hang out at your place, don't do that.
Yeah. They had just stated that, he portrayed himself as being in the Big Brother program, and the kids would come and play in his yard because he had this big dirt pile or whatever. And the dirt pile is where he ended up building the bunker underneath that. And so, unfortunately, no one suspected him of anything because he was a neighborhood friendly guy who let the kids play in his yard, and he was a contractor, and, he wasn't a stranger. And so
I would be suspicious of that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Dean Carroll. Remember, I mean, he had all the teenagers coming to hang out at the candy shop. Sus. You're sus, man.
Personally, I'm suspicious of everybody. And if I had children, I don't know. I would be like, no, you guys are never leaving. I would be the captor. You guys are not leaving this house. This world is too crazy.
It is really hard not to be a helicopter parent. Yeah. It is really hard. We have little watches that they wear that they can call us and we can call them, but we can also see where they are, Yeah. And that's about as much helicopter so they can ride down the street to go to a friend's house. But oh my gosh, we are. Yeah. It makes me so nervous.
Yes. But then I think back to when I was in school, I was in middle school and I lived on this this giant neighborhood, and the school was right outside of the neighborhood. And my friends and I would literally walk through woods, backwoods, for miles to the school because we didn't want to ride the school bus down neighborhood streets, whatever, totally unsupervised. We didn't have cell phones back then. And nobody thought anything about it, right? We would pass sketchy homeless people in the woods and not think anything about it. We just kept going. And now I'm like, oh my God, how did I survive? We would just ride our bikes wherever, no cell phones, no tracking devices. Parents just said, be home by dark. So it was definitely, I know these things happened when I was a kid, but it's just so crazy to think about it and think about how I survived and to know what, when we do these stories and research these stories, I don't think I could have children. I don't think I could do it.
Our parents. So I'm reading Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Anyway, but she says, our parents had this was the memo they got when they left the hospital. Here's your kid. Find some other people who have kids, hang out, play cards, kick the kids out. Don't let them back in until it's dark. That's basically how we were all raised, back then. And now, but parents now are here's your kid, protect them at all costs from all the evils and the unhappiness of the world. Every day has to be like Disneyland. And if you really go to Disneyland, then you make sure you get a fast pass because this baby cannot wait in line. You need to make it sunshine and rainbows all the time. And if you don't, you fail. We're given this other crazy expectation for children. And so it's so hard. Man, how did we survive? But there's got to be a medium. Yeah. There's got it somewhere in the middle. There's got to be we're going to give our kids the adult, some adult experience. They have to have a little bit of bad to learn how to keep the good. I don't know. There's got to be a happy medium on that.
Yeah. But I can't imagine what it's like to be a parent because you let your kid have freedom and then you're the bad parent who let your kid have freedom. And then if you don't let your kids have freedom, you're the bad parent who didn't let your kids have freedom. So it's so conflicting. And I'm glad I don't have to deal with it. I just have dogs and my dogs do what I say when I say to do it. Not really. They control me, but they're still cute. And they are a lot less likely to not. So I just have dogs, and that's anxiety enough. I cannot imagine having children or trying to be a parent or trying to figure out again, like Katie said, and like so many others say, you get these children, they get abducted by family friends or family members or whatever. It's not strangers. And so that's so scary to think about for me. Like, God, you cannot trust anyone in this world, like at all, period. And it's so scary. Like, even as an adult, you can't trust, like going on blind dates or hanging out with friends sometimes. Like, friends kill friends now. And it's just so crazy to me.
I am so glad I don't have to date.
I read horror stories in these Facebook groups, like in these women's Facebook groups, and I'm like, oh my God, fuck that. Like, just no.
Oh, well, great story. Thank you for suggesting it.
Yes, thank you.
That's a really good story.
Again, I love the outcome that it was positive and that she did so much with her life. And again, if you have a story that you want us to do, please send it to us. We've done so many. If you want to be on the show and you want to tell the story, by all means, you come on. You just have to have a microphone of some kind and be on Zoom. And that's it. Those are our requirements. You don't, hello, do you listen to us? We don't know what so, just come on, record yourself.
Don't tell our secrets.
We've had lots of co-hosts, Sarah, Ashley, Jesse, Janet.
Lots of guests.
Yeah,
lots of guests.
Yeah, you can just come on and hang with us. You don't even have to tell a story. So, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the reviews and follows.
We love you guys so much. We're on all the things. So make sure to, if you, whatever platform you listen to us on, write a review, please.
Yes.
Please. Yes.
Yes.
That's
and you can leave us voicemails on our on our website, which is catandashley.com. Very easy to remember.
I love the voicemails.
Yes, I do too. We haven't had one in a while, so, feel free. Leave us 10, 20, doesn't matter. We add them to the end of
a little
episode.
Jingle.
Yes.
Have a little jingle. This is our voicemail. Yeah.
Yes. If you have a jingle that we could put in between, like, the voicemails, we'll play it. We'll use it. It'll be famous. We're, I don't know if you heard, but we're in the top 10 true crime podcasts.
What?
Woo!
All right. Well, we love you guys. What am I doing next week? I have no idea. So if you have a story suggestion, I'm all ears.
Yes.
And if you have a question of the week suggestion, I'm all eyes.
Yes.
Because you probably can't tell me what it is. But please do send those in. And until then, have an amazing week. And we'll see you same time. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Be good. Be kind to one another, please. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.